Before I do that, I want to point out this icon on the lectern. It is OCL's patron saint, Saint Simeon the New Theologian. And he was selected our patron saint because he was a harbinger of reform, a harbinger of speaking up against corruption and evil doing, and he was the first spiritual renewal agent in the Orthodox Church. He lived 1,000 years ago in Constantinople, and because he was doing what OCL is doing, he was exiled and banished by the Patriarch and the Emperor, like we've been exiled. And so he went to his own monastery and he attracted a following and preached reform and humility with Father Vladimir and others, and Father Scott told us today. And the Patriarch and the Emperor realized that he had a very significant message, like the message we heard today, and invited him back to Constantinople to become an archbishop. But he turned him down and stayed with his ass. That is our patron saint, and that's what we intend to do. Without further ado, I want to introduce George Arabosis, who is taking the video there, who is going to monitor the 2 workshops with the respondees. George is a founding member of OCL from this locale, from Elmhurst, Illinois, and we welcome him to the podium.
For the autocephalous, or is there a ferment there like there is in the Greek Orthodox Church?
The question was, is there a movement in the Antiochian church here in America towards autocephaly like there's beginning to be a little bit in the Greek Archdiocese?
Among the brother clergy that I interact with, I don't hear a lot of discussion about autocephaly. It is a concept that has really been put on the back shelf until the crisis of confidence is resolved in the Greek Archdiocese.
Steve, could I ask you to do the honors? I don't know if everybody heard that, but maybe we can have it repeated. I'm sorry, I've neglected to get the microphone.
The Antiochian Patriarch. He is, first of all, there's Patriarch Bartholomew, and then there, in order of honor, and then Patriarch Petros of Alexandria. The third is a Patriarch Ignatius IV of Antioch. And he has called publicly, in written form, for an American Orthodox Patriarchate. That means more than just an autocephalous church, but actually our own patriarch.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
By the way, he's going to be here this summer for the Antiochian All-American Conference, or whatever it's called, and he's a great patriarch. So this group should be seeing these kinds of people, Metropolitan Philip and Patriarch Ignatius, and you should go see Theodosius, even if it's private and not official, whatever it takes. It's everything that has to be taken.
The Holy Spirit, I guess, moves in mysterious ways, but in the last several years we've had booths at some of the OCA sobers. We've gone to some of the Antiochian gatherings, and we've already, at our meeting yesterday, we elected representatives from OCL to go to the conferences, both the Antiochian and the OCA conference. I don't want the opportunity to pass for me to make a sales pitch, and that is for all of you who are here and who are not already members of OCL. We would welcome your membership in OCL, and beyond that, we would hope that you would spread the word of what we're doing to all of your friends, and some of the literature that you've had here and that you've picked up with you would kind of be disciples to spread it around. Yes, Ulysses.
In the group B, in the group B that we witnessed, the gentleman over there talked about, the lawyer talked about that case in Georgia. I thought was very interesting. Could he repeat that? I think it's very interesting.
Okay, Spiro Baduras. Spiro, where are you? I didn't report on it. I couldn't remember the site. Why don't you go ahead? You got the mic.
I didn't come prepared to. I didn't remember the site, so I couldn't give it to you anyway.
It was in Georgia.
No, you know, he talked about it at our workshop, but I didn't repeat it.
Okay. This was a case that occurred in Georgia between, I think it was within the Episcopalian Church, where a church wanted to withdraw from the Episcopalian Archdiocese, or whatever it was, the diocese or archdiocese. Litigation occurred in this case. In the petition, there were a number of counts, and by that there were a number of theories proposed. One had to do with the property, since it was in a not-for-profit corporation, notwithstanding the fact it was a non-for-profit corporation, that the property belonged to the archdiocese. In the testimony that came out was that all the funds for the purchase of this property, none of it came from the archdiocese, but all of it was raised by the people. Some of it was from wills and trusts, etc., so that there was a fiduciary responsibility in that court. Also, they brought up, this was during the period of civil rights, and the bringing into the church of other members of the races. There was an allegation that there was a contract between the church and the archdiocese having to do with some of these matters. In the course of that trial, in the circuit court, a judgment was rendered in favor of the not-for-profit corporation. On appeal, it went to the Supreme Court of Georgia, where, as I recall, it was sustained. Then there was a certiorari to the United States Supreme Court, and an opinion was rendered. In the process of that case, the Supreme Court reviewed the common law, which of course we've gotten from England, and the traditions in other matters, which was that in America there's a separation between church and state, and that the law courts did not want to get involved in litigation having to do with problems that should be resolved by the hierarchy of the church. It then went on and established four purposes for which the United States courts could have jurisdiction. One of them was over real estate. The next one, you could have jurisdiction if there was fraud. The other two, my recollection is not absolutely clear. It's been over of years. Well, the other one had to do with abrogation of certain rights. The Supreme Court then returned that case to the Supreme Court of Georgia for further testimony or whatever had to be done. The Supreme Court of Georgia said that there were a number of issues in this case, and this one we should not listen, and we ignored this one. But the question of is there sufficient testimony having to do with the ownership of the property by a not-for-profit corporation, it found that it did, and therefore remanded the case to be so that the property would remain with the people who paid for it. Now, that case, I did not follow it any further than that, but I think it's an interesting case, and I told Mr. Pontikes I'd send him a copy of it.
I was waiting for George to say, make it fast. Hurry. That's what they tell Chris Zeros. I'm from Texas, but they say, make it fast. Okay. No, I want to just touch on the ethnicity bit. People think, no, we're going to lose our ethnicity. We're not going to be Greeks. We can't be Arabs. We can't be this. And I take the Roman Catholic model. They're Roman Catholics first, but they have their Colombian club, their Polish club, their Italian club. They all have their identity. And I'm really proud of Big D, not Detroit, but Dallas. We have a Greek food festival there. I know all of you do, but we're the granddaddies. We bring in $250,000 or $500,000 every festival. And we, boy, you don't know how much truth there is in that. But he's from St. Louis, Missouri originally. Okay. But we have opened the doors that we not only have the Greek Food Festival, we've permitted the Ukrainian section that attends the church to have a booth to display their wares. They paint the Ukrainian eggs, they even dance inside the display area. So we are beginning to get that idea that you can have other groups within your own Greek food festival. And so I wouldn't worry about you're going to lose your ethnicity. It'll be here whether we like it or not. Let's just be Orthodox first. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. That does bring up, because we did have in our workshop somebody who did ask the question, you know, if we have a United Orthodox Church, does that mean that we can't have parochial schools? And of course, you know, the answer to that is you can have any kind of schools that there's a demand for, whether they're a Greek or Ukrainian or French or Japanese or anything. This is the unified, you know, the church for all of the people. I have a question over here.
Not a question, just a brief comment. Stick my 2 cents in. I think if there's one thing that comes out of this conference that I've gained, and I think we should take forward and be proactive with, it is the concept of forming associations, regionally or nationally, or ideally both, of parish council groups that will act and interact together to share information, to educate one another, and bring the collective consciousness of our parishes up to a level. If there's one thing that I've realized over the past couple of years of reading the internet, Voithia and other sites, news groups, on almost a daily basis, and the webpage, yes, OCL webpage and others, it is that there are so many of us that are absolutely or ignorant of the situation in its most basic form. And we in this room probably comprise a very small minority of people who are actually cognizant of the situation as it exists in the Archdiocese today. And to me, that's appalling that presidents of parish councils do not know of the situation, of the antics of some of our hierarchs, of the atrocities that are being committed by some of our leaders. And I think that it's absolutely essential that we organize in a fashion along the lines of Association of Parish Councils.
Very good. Yeah, I was reminded that the book that OCL has published on the American Church and the Ecumenical Patriarchate has been mailed to every clergyman of all the Orthodox jurisdictions throughout the United States. So, and we do have on our mailing list, we are a pan-Orthodox movement, although we're dominated as the whole country, all of Orthodoxy in this country, by members of the Greek Archdiocese, just because of the sheer numbers. But we're constantly trying to reach out and to bring on board as many of the Orthodox in other jurisdictions. So there is an attempt, but that's an excellent point.
I'm humbled by the great wisdom and knowledge and the scholars that are present here, and it gives me a chance to ask a question which people ask me, and I'm not a scholar, and I'm not a theologian, but what exactly would the relationship of our autocephalous church be with the patriarch? You know, is it something where we just kind of pay reverent homage and that's it, or because a lot of people say we can't break away from the patriarchate, but I know that there's probably 100 people in this room that can answer that question.
I would prefer Bob Scott to answer it, but he wants me to do it, so I shall. The basic relationship, if we had a autocephalous church developed here, would be the same relationship that all the other autocephalous churches have toward the patriarch. The patriarch is the first among equals, which means that he is ranked in honor above all of the other autocephalous patriarchs or archbishops. But he does not have the authority to interfere, and this is a point that Valerie made this morning, that he has no authority to interfere in any other jurisdiction except his own. So he cannot go and interfere in, say, the Patriarchate of Alexandria or of Antioch, and so forth. He does have an interesting, so the relationship, to answer your question directly, the relationship would be that we would be an autocephalous church paying respect to the Patriarch just as all the other autocephalous churches do. I might add that the Patriarch of Constantinople has one very interesting characteristic. If there is a dispute between two other patriarchates or autocephalous bodies, official dispute, yeah, he decides it because he is the first among equals.
Monetary.
Well, Themis Tsaousis raised the question, well, what about the monetary, support? I think that everyone should know that the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of North and South America, in at least the last 4 or 5 clergy laity congresses that I've attended, they adopt a budget, a 2-year budget, in every instance that I recall. They allocate $500,000 a year from our archdiocese to go to the Patriarchate. This is really a drop in the bucket. As I understand it, the Ecumenical Patriarchate receives about $5 or $6 million a year from Greece. The fact that we would be, there are individuals in this country contribute directly to the Ecumenical Patriarchate outside of the archdiocese. There are people who go and they give money and they establish, there are people in Greece that give money. The Patriarchate recently rebuilt one of their buildings essentially from one person, from one individual wealthy person in Greece that gave several $1 million. So if a united autocephalous American Orthodox Church could probably give more financial support to that Patriarchate as well as to the other Patriarchates that are in need, and also look to the U.S. and Western Europe and other places where there are Orthodox Christians. Can't hear it? You don't need it.
No, you can hear the house.
Okay. All right. Did everybody hear? We basically, the idea that if we were to become autocephalous somehow or other, that would result in the Patriarchate not having support, I think is not true. If anything, we could probably give more support, financial, and certainly we could give more political support as a united Orthodox Church in this country to a Patriarchate that's pretty much under siege in a hostile environment. So it really would not be a detriment for us to be autocephalous. That would really be a benefit. Okay.
Yes, I'm Diane Nichols-Sotis, and I'm a native of Chicago, living in Washington, D.C., and I'd like to make a comment, an observation, if you will. First of all, I think you share my enthusiasm for the erudition of our speakers and the knowledge they've imparted to us. We're so heartened to see so many of you here today. However, it grieves me deeply to see that the mean age of this assembly is like 60 years old.
You can represent that?
Except for myself, I'm 39. Where are our young people? We have highly educated young people that have doctorate degrees and postgraduate degrees, and there are shining lights out there, but the Orthodox Church is a non-issue to them. And I have 3 professional young persons who are very apathetic. They go to church Christmas and Easter. Where are you? Except for a table over here, I don't see any young faces.
He is a young man right here. He's coming up. One right here. What's your name over there?
Our church needs therapy, and therapy has to start at the top. And I think that we have to, with God's grace and love and humility, as was spoken by Reverend Scott and others, we must take action toward unity and autocephaly. We need to save our church for the millennium that's coming. We are an anachronistic society. We're a dying breed, but what about our kids? Those kids are our most precious commodity. And they're doctors and lawyers and wonderful people, but churches are non-issue. Church is filled with old people like us. President comes in a second.
From Massachusetts, I still talk about Karras. I'm also an OCL member and proud of it. I want to extend extension of the remarks made by the gentleman about getting together with the parish councils and joining together around the country. I want to extend that to say, don't wait for the parish councils to do that. The parish councils in so many cases are part of the establishment that is holding things back. And if you took a vote today, I think you would have an overwhelming number of parish councils voting with Archbishop Spiridon. And you cannot sit around and wait for that. And if there's any message in our movement, it is that we, the laity, have to take things into our own hands if we believe we're right and move forward with it and not wait for those who have been elected. We have to do it. And we can't be afraid of doing it, and we should not think we're wrong in doing it, but we have to be quite willing to start at the grassroots as OCL has and as others have and move forward with it. Let's not wait for the establishment, which is, I see, is most of the parish councils today.
I recalled an incident that affected all the early founders of OCL. And it wasn't Easter time, it was Christmas. And on the front page of the Orthodox Observer, we were threatened that all of us who were the founders, charter members, new members of OCL were going to be excommunicated from the Greek Orthodox Church. And of course, this was Easter time. And I think it was a strategy to scare us to death. And it just convinced us all the more that there's no way we're going to fold up. And in fact, it was a blessing in disguise because we took that information and used it as ammunition and, you know, democracy in action, and we told the world about it. And that didn't work for some of the powers to be, so they tried some other strategies, and we can write a book about it. And I think if this movement towards having parish councils, interfaith or inter-pan-Orthodox parish councils, the people that are willing to get involved must recognize that you must have this armor of faith, and you're going to be attacked in many strange ways from strange phone calls, threats, etc. But if you believe in it, then hang in there.
Thank you.
My name is Peter Karras. I'm a National Vice President of OCL from Berkeley, California, at the Annunciation Cathedral in Oakland. And what I would like to say is the following. I think that we've had some really fantastic messages today. Deacon, I think you did a perfect job in summarizing and telling us where to go and how to get started. And I hope that as we leave from this room, each one of us takes the responsibility, if we really strongly believe in what we've done here today, is to go out and convince 10 other people of what we want to do. The education effort, the grassroots effort, is not only our responsibility, OCL's, or X or Y or Z, but it's collectively everyone's responsibility. So I urge all of you to go and to try and proselytize and bring other people to the cause. That's the only way that we'll succeed. Thank you very much.